The emergency lights bathed the council chamber in red. Vaughn stood at the center podium, his crystalline body reflecting the alarm signals in fractured patterns across the curved walls around him. Representatives from 43 worlds waited in tense silence. Some floated in specialized atmosphere pods, others perched on adaptive seating designed for their unique anatomies. All of them looked worried. The latest readings confirm our fears, Vaughn announced, his voice resonating through the translation matrix. The rupture is accelerating. 3 star systems will become uninhabitable. Within 60 cycles, a wave of distressed sounds filled the chamber. Tailize, the insectoid military commander, clicked her mandibles sharply. Our evacuation plans cannot move 12 billion souls in that time. We need at least 200 cycles. Work. The phenomenon defies all our models, added Cree, the amphibious scientist whose skin shifted through anxious color patterns. We have tried everything: gravitational dampeners, energy siphons, even attempting to collapse the affected space into dimensional pockets. Nothing works. The rupture simply adapts and spreads faster. Vaughn's crystalline form dimmed slightly, a sign of deep concern among his species. We are asking the impossible. Does anyone have any new proposals? Anything we have not attempted? Silence stretched through the chamber. Months of work by the galaxy's brightest minds had produced nothing. The rupture was a cascading stellar phenomenon that fed on the very energy used to stop it. It was like trying to fight fire with gasoline. Every solution made things worse. Council senior administrator, a voice spoke from the human delegation seating. May we review the data? Every being in the chamber turned to look. The humans were so new to galactic society that many species still forgot they were members. First contact had happened only 40 years ago. In galactic terms, that was yesterday. Humanity had barely 2 colony worlds beyond their home system. Their technology was crude by council standards. Their ships were laughably slow. Vor's body brightened with what might have been polite amusement. Of course, Representative Day 1, we will transmit all research materials to your quarters. Day 1 stood up slowly. He was tall for a human, with short dark hair and calm eyes that seemed to take in everything without judgment. Beside him, Jin rose as well. She was shorter, with her hair pulled back in a practical tie, and she carried a worn data pad that looked ancient compared to the holographic systems the other species used. Thank you, Duan said simply. We would like to help. A ripple of sound moved through the chamber. Some species made their version of laughter. Others remained politely quiet. Tailize leaned toward Vaughn and whispered in a frequency most humans could not hear. But the translation matrix caught it. Anyway, what can they possibly offer? They still use chemical propulsion for half their fleet. Non-chemical Nundi. Today's expression did not change. If he heard the comment, he showed no sign of offense. Hyjin smiled slightly, gesture that confused several non-human observers who were still learning human facial expressions. We understand your skepticism, Hyjin said. We are new here. Our technology is not as advanced as yours, but we are very good at solving problems that seem impossible. It is something humans do well. With respect, Cree said, his skin flashing diplomatic green. Our best scientists have worked on this for months. We have computational systems that can process scenarios faster than your entire Planets combine computing power. We have energy manipulation technology that your species will not develop for centuries. If we cannot solve this, I do not see how we understand. Day 1 interrupted gently. May we still look at the data? Vaughn made a gesture of agreement. Of course, all information will be available to you. We welcome any ideas, no matter how unlikely they may be. The council session ended shortly after, as the various species departed to their quarters. Vaughn watched the two humans walk together toward the exit. They moved with purpose but without hurry. It was strange. Most species showed visible signs of the crisis. The Telkins were molting from stress. The Valen had stopped eating. Even Vaughn felt the weight of 12 billion lives pressing against his consciousness like a physical force, but the humans seemed calm, not uncaring. Talais approached Vaughn as the chamber emptied. You should not have given them access to sensitive data. They might share it with unauthorized parties. They are council members, Vaughn reminded. Sir, they have every right to the information, and what harm can it do? We have no solution. Let them look. Perhaps they will see something we missed. Vaughn, unlikely, Talais said. But I suppose there is no harm in letting them try. In their quarters, Duan and Hjin sat side by side, reviewing the data streams that flooded their screens. Hours passed, they said little, occasionally pointing at specific readings or nodding at some shared understanding. The data was overwhelming. Stellar energy patterns, quantum fluctuations, dimensional stress readings, gravitational anomalies. The rupture was not one phenomenon, but dozens of interconnected, cascading failures in the fabric of space itself. Each attempted solution had made things worse because the rupture adapted. It learned it was not alive, but it behaved like something that wanted to survive. They are right, Hjin said finally. This is impossible with conventional thinking. Day 1 nodded slowly, his eyes still scanning data. So we do not think conventionally. You are seeing what I am seeing? She asked. I think so. The energy does not need to be stopped. It needs somewhere to go. Exactly, Hjin said, a smile crossing her face like a river. You cannot stop a flood by building a wall. You redirect it. Day 1 leaned back in his chair. He looked tired but satisfied. We are going to need a team and equipment, a lot of equipment. They are not going to like our plan, Hjin warned. Day 1 agreed. They are not, but it will work. You are sure? Day 1 was quiet for a moment, then he smiled. It was a small smile, the kind humans gave when they were about to do something crazy. We got this, he said. The transport ships arrived at the abandoned industrial station 3 cycles later. Kree watched them dock. With growing confusion, he had been assigned to observe the human effort and report back to the council. What he saw made no sense. 50 humans emerged from the ships pulling cargo containers. Behind them, the containers were old, dented and covered in faded markings from various mining corporations. Some had burn marks, others looked like they had been welded together from multiple sources. This was the equipment that would save 12 billion lives. This is your advanced technology? Kree asked as Day 1 approached. Advanced. Day 1 replied, but it works. Most of this equipment is from decommissioned mining operations. We bought it cheap and modified it. A woman with bright eyes and grease already on her hands. Waved at them from across the docking. "Bay, that is Bora," Daewon explained. "Our best aerospace engineer and pilot. If something can fly, she can make it." "Fly better," Bo jogged over grinning. "We got the 3 old freighters you sent us. The specs for, they are in rough shape. But nothing we cannot fix." "How much time do we have?" 17. "The council estimates we need the platforms ready in 40 cycles." Kree said, "We will do it in 12." Bora said confidently. Kree's skin flashed orange, the color of disbelief. "Impossible. Each ship requires complete structural reconfiguration. The reactor alone needs, we know." Bora said, "That is why we brought our own reactors." "Well, sort of, they are modified from deep core mining equipment, but they will work." A tall man with glasses approached, carrying a tablet covered in equations. "This is Taon," Daewon introduced. "Physicist and problem solver. I prefer improviser," Tyson said with a slight smile. "The council's approach has been trying to stop the rupture. That will not work, so we are not going to stop it." Kree stared at him. "Excuse me, come. I will show you." Ta Sun led them to a holographic display where he pulled up the rupture data. His fingers moved quickly, highlighting energy flow patterns. "The rupture is like a wave, a massive cascading wave of destabilized stellar energy. Every time you try to block it, the energy builds up and breaks through stronger. You cannot fight a wave head-on. We know this," Kree said impatiently. "That is why we have failed, right? So instead we surf it, redirect it." Jun explained, joining them. "We will create 3 artificial gravity wells using modified stellar anchors. These wells will form a channel. The rupture's energy will follow the path of least resistance through our channel and disperse harmlessly into deep space." Kree processed this. His skin shifted through several colors as his brain worked through the implications. That is actually theoretically sound, but the precision required is impossible. The gravity wells would need to be stable within 1% accuracy, and the energy output needed would melt any known anchor system. You would need equipment that does not exist. Bora laughed. "That is what everyone keeps saying. Good thing we brought our own anchor systems, modified them from deep space mining tethers. They are designed to hold position in stellar winds. We just need to boost the output by a factor of several thousand." Kree pointed out. "Yes," Tan agreed. "That is the tricky part. We will need to cannibalize parts from the station and probably few of those decommissioned satellites in orbit. You cannot just tear apart council property," CRE protested. Daewon pulled out a data pad. "We filed the proper requisition forms. Council Emergency Protocol 77 allows for commandeering of unused resources during existential crisis. Station has been abandoned for 8 years. The satellites are listed as scrap." Seeing Kree's skin went pale blue, a sign of being outmaneuvered. "You read our legal codes?" Quote, "Yes, Jin said simply. "We do our research." Over the next 2 cycles, Kree watched in fascination and horror as the humans worked. They moved with chaotic energy that somehow produced results. Teams swarmed over the 3 old freighters, cutting, welding, and rebuilding them into something new. The sounds were deafening. Sparks flew constantly. Humans shouted to each other over the noise, often seeming to argue, but then they would laugh and continue working. Bora's team stripped one freighter down to its skeleton. In 30 hours they removed everything non-essential, turning the ship into a flying platform. For the anchor system, calculated it would take at least a week just to remove the old engine safely. The humans did it in a day and a half using controlled explosives. You are using mining charges inside a spaceship, Kree asked in shock. A young man covered in soot grinned at him. His name was Young Ho, and he sang old Earth songs while he worked, which disturbed several of Kree's species who associated singing with mating calls. Fastest way to separate whole plating, Yang Ho explained. You just have to know where to place them. I used to blow up asteroids. This is easier. Tae Sun's team worked on the anchor modifications. They took equipment designed for entirely different purposes and made it work together. A mining laser became a gravitational emitter. A cargo ship's navigation system became the precision control unit. Nothing was used the way it was originally designed. Everything was improvised. Does nothing concern you about safety protocols? Kree asked Town. Many things concern me about safety, Tessin replied, not looking up from his work. But we test everything. If it does not work, we fix it. If it works, we use it. Simple. That is not how engineering works. It is how human engineering works, Tan said with a smile. A woman named Sunmi coordinated everything from a command center she set up in an empty cargo bay. She tracked thousands of tasks on screens that surrounded her like a cocoon. Kree watched her work for an hour and still could not understand how she kept track of it all without advanced AI assistance. How do you remember all of this? He asked. Sunmi shrugged. Practice. I used to coordinate disaster relief on Earth, earthquakes, floods, fires. You learn to keep many things in your head at once, and I trust my team. If someone says they need something, I get it for them. On the 8th cycle, disaster struck. A critical power coupling burned out during a test. The replacement part was on a supply ship that would not arrive for 40 cycles. Too late. Kree thought this was the end. The humans would finally admit defeat. Instead, Town gathered his team for 20 minutes. They talked rapidly, sketching ideas on tablets and arguing about possibilities. Then they scattered, pulling parts from 6 different systems. 4 hours later, they had built a replacement from spare parts. It looked like it had been assembled by someone who had never seen the original, but when they tested it, it worked perfectly. Kree reported to the council that night. They are either completely insane or the most brilliant engineers I have ever seen, possibly both. Will their plan work? Vor asked. Kree's skin shifted to thoughtful purple. According to everything I know, it should not, but they keep doing things that should not work, and somehow they work anyway. I am starting to believe them. On the 12th cycle, Bo-Ra stood in front of the 3 completed platforms. They looked nothing like the sleek council ships. They were ugly, asymmetrical, and covered in mismatched components, but every system tested green, ready to save some worlds. She asked her team. The humans cheered. Kree found himself cheering with them. He still did not understand how they had done it, but when they said, "We got this," he was beginning to believe they actually meant it. The convoy moved through space like a mismatched parade. 3 massive platforms, each one a transformed freighter, drifted toward their deployment positions. Around them, smaller human ships darted back and forth, making Final adjustments and running tests. Behind them at a safe distance, the Council observation fleet watched in nervous anticipation. Wexon Avon pilot, whose species was known for precision flying, had volunteered to join the human convoy, her feathers ruffled constantly, a sign of agitation. She had never seen anyone work the way humans worked. Platform 2, your starboard thrusters are 3 degrees off alignment, she called over the communication channel. Yeah, we know, Boran LT Unkenjiti's voice came back completely unconcerned. We are compensating with the port side. It balances out. That is not proper procedure, probably not. But it works. We tested it 6 times, Wex made a frustrated chirping sound. Everything the humans did seemed wrong. But somehow the results were right. It was maddening. Young Ho's voice came over the channel, singing something about being on a road to nowhere. His team was doing the final exterior work on Platform 3, using spacewalks to install the last components. Wex watched them work. They moved in ways that made her flight instincts scream. Too fast, too casual, they joked and laughed while floating in the void of space. Young Ho, you are supposed to be tethered at all times during exterior work. Wex reminded him, I am tethered. See, there was a pause. Oh wait, that came loose. Hang on, got it. All secure now, thanks for noticing. Wex felt a headache forming. Her species did not usually get headaches, but apparently spending time with humans caused new medical conditions. Inside the command ship, Sunmi orchestrated the deployment like a conductor leading a symphony. Screens surrounded her, each one showing different aspects of the operation: ship positions, energy readings, supply levels, personnel status. She tracked it all with human eyes and a brain that somehow kept thousands of details organized without artificial intelligence assistance. Platform 1 will reach position in 3 hours, she announced. Platform 3 in 5 hours. Platform 2 in 6 hours. Platform 2 is the slowest, Cree asked. He had remained with the human team, his scientific curiosity overcoming his initial skepticism. Yes, it has the weakest engines, so we gave it the closest position. It has less distance to travel. You assigned positions based on engine capacity rather than tactical advantage. We assigned positions based on what works. Sunmi said simply. Platform 2's position is actually better for our purposes. The weaker engines do not matter there. We turned a weakness into an advantage. Talon worked nearby, monitoring the gravitational calculations. The math was incredibly complex. The 3 platforms had to create precisely aligned gravity wells that would form a channel for the rupture's energy. Even the smallest error would cause the plan to fail catastrophically. The stellar drift in Sector 9 is higher than predicted, he announced, adjusting Platform 3's position by 2,000 km. 2,000 km. Cree set an alarm that will take hours to calculate the new energy. Alignment already done. Talon sent the new coordinates. Young Ho, you need to adjust your exterior work. The new position changes the energy flow by 6%. Got it. Young Ho responded immediately. Will that affect the port side emitters? Yes, boost them by 3%. Easy. Cree stared at his own calculation tablet. How did you compute the new alignment so quickly? I have not even finished calculating the initial variables. Ta Sun smiled. I start running alternative scenarios 2 days ago. I had 15 different position adjustments already prepared. This was scenario 7. This one you predicted we would need adjustments. Of course, space is not stable. Things change. We prepare for changes. The work continued. Human teams swarmed over problems as they appeared, fixing them before they became critical. A cooling system overheated on Platform 1 before anyone could officially report it. Bo-Ra's team had rerouted coolant from a secondary system and installed additional radiators they had built from spare parts. Where did you get those radiators? Wex asked. They were not in your equipment inventory. We made them yesterday from excess hole plating, Bora explained. Figured we might need extra cooling. Always better to have parts ready. You just casually fabricated advanced cooling systems from scrap metal. They are not that advanced, just bent metal with coolant tubes. Works fine though. An alarm sounded on platform 3. Wex's feathers stood on end. Energy spike in the anchor system. You are exceeding safety limits by 40%. Young Ho's voice came back calm. Yeah, we are testing maximum capacity. Need to know what it can handle. You are testing it now. During deployment. Best time to test. Real conditions, real stress. Better to find problems now than during the actual event. That is insane. Maybe Yang Ho agreed cheerfully, but it worked. The system can handle 50% over normal capacity. Good to know. Wex turned to Kree. Are all humans like this? Kree's skin had settled into a constant shade of bewildered orange. I think so. I have stopped being surprised. As Platform 1 reached its position, a more serious problem emerged. The anchor system was not locking properly into position. It kept drifting just slightly, but enough to ruin the precision needed for the gravity well. Sunmi pulled up diagnostic data. The locking mechanism is damaged. Must have happened during transport. 12. Can we repair it? Day 1 asked. Not without pulling the platform back to the construction station, Ton said, running calculations. That would take 12 hours minimum. We do not have 12 hours, H. Jun reminded them. The rupture's current speed means we need to deploy in 8 hours. Silence filled the command center. This was the kind of problem that had no easy solution. Kind of problem that ended missions. Then Bora spoke up. What if we do not fix it? Everyone turned to look at her. The drift is constant, right? She continued. 02 degrees hour. What if we program the navigation system to counter drift? The ship constantly adjusts position to compensate. That would require constant power to the thrusters, Wex pointed out. Your fuel reserves would drain in 30 hours. We only needed to hold position for about 3 hours during the actual event, Boas said. Then we can recover the platforms and repair them properly. Ton was already running numbers. It could work. The navigation system can handle it. We would need to write a custom program to manage the micro adjustments. How long would that take? Day 1 asked. 2 hours, Tessin said. Maybe 3. Do it, Day 1 decided. Kree watched as Taeyeon and 2 other humans immediately sat down and started writing code. They argued constantly, talking over each other, suggesting ideas and shooting them down. It looked like chaos, but their fingers moved across keyboards with purpose, and lines of code appeared on screens. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, they had the program ready. They tested it once, made 3 adjustments, tested it again, then uploaded it to Platform 1. The platform stopped drifting. The anchor system held position perfectly, compensating automatically for the slight mechanical drift. That actually worked. Wex said quietly, "You sound surprised." Young Ho said, laughter in his voice, "I am always surprised with you humans. You should not be able to do these things. The odds are against you. Time is too short, the resources are insufficient, and yet somehow you do them anyway. That is because we do not think about the odds," Sunmi said. "We think about solutions. There is always a solution. Sometimes you just have to be creative." Fiverr Mander 23.7 23:23. As Platform 3 reached its final position, Day 1 stood and addressed the entire team over the communication network. All platforms are in position. All systems are ready. The rupture will reach the affected systems in 6 hours. We have prepared for this. We have built something from nothing. We have solved every problem that appeared. Now we do what we came here to do. We got this. The humans cheered. Even Wex found herself feeling hopeful. These strange, chaotic, impossible humans had actually done it. They had built their ridiculous plan and made it work. Now they just had to see if the plan would save 12 billion lives. The warning alarms shattered the tense calm that had settled over the command ship. Sunmi's eyes snapped to her screens and her face went pale. "The rupture is accelerating," she announced, her voice tight. "It is moving 30% faster than projected." Every human in the command center stopped what they were doing. Kree felt his skin flash through 3 colors at once, something that only happened in extreme stress. "How much time do we have?" Daewon asked, already moving toward the main display. Ton's fingers flew across his keyboard. 3 hours, maybe less. The energy cascade is feeding on itself faster than our models predicted. 3 hours. Wex's voice came over the communication channel from her ship. The third platform needs 6 hours to complete its positioning. Hygiene pulled up the evacuation fleet status. The Council's evacuation ships will not clear the danger zone in 3 hours. At least 4 billion people will still be in range. When the rupture hits, the weight of that number filled the room. 4 billion lives. The humans had come here promising to help to solve the impossible problem, but if they failed, now billions would die. The pressure should have crushed them. Instead, they moved faster. "Options," Daewon said. "Simply, we abort," Kree suggested, his voice shaking. "Pull back the platforms. Save what we can with conventional evacuation." "That is not an option," Bora said firmly from Platform 2. "If we abort now, the evacuation ships will not save even half. We go forward with 2 platforms." Wex said, "Your own calculations show you need 3 for the energy channel to work." "Oh, then we find another way," Ton said. He was already recalculating, running new scenarios on his screens. "What if we use 2 platforms at maximum output? The energy feedback would destroy them." Young Ho pointed out from Platform 3. I'm looking at my systems right now. If I push this past 120% capacity, the whole thing melts, and that is still not enough power to channel the rupture." Sunmi stood up, pacing. "What about Platform 3? Even incomplete, it has some capability. It is only 60% functional." Young Ho said, "The anchor system is not fully installed. It cannot Generate a gravity well strong enough to matter. What if we do not use it for a gravity? Well, He-jin said suddenly. What if we use it as a reflector? Quote, everyone stopped and looked at her. Explained, Daewon said. He-jin moved to a screen and started sketching with her fingers. The third platform cannot generate a full gravity well, but it can generate some gravitational force. What if we position it here? She marked a spot on the map. It does not need to be part of the main channel. It just needs to create enough gravitational distortion to reflect some of the rupture's energy back toward the channel created by platforms 1 and 2. Taon stared at the diagram. That might work. It would not channel the energy perfectly, but it might guide enough of it to prevent the worst damage. We would need to increase power on platforms 1 and 2 to compensate. How much power? Bora asked. 160% of maximum capacity, Tessin said. Quietly, silence. Everyone understood what that meant. At that power level, the platforms would not survive. The systems would burn out, possibly explode, and anyone aboard would die. I will pilot platform 2. Manually, Bora said immediately. At that power level, the automated systems will fail. Someone needs to be inside making real-time adjustments. No, Daewon said, the radiation alone will kill you in minutes, even with full shielding. No, Boa said calmly. But if I am not there to make adjustments, the whole thing fails. Anyway, everyone dies. If I am there, I can keep it stable long enough for the plan to work. Bora He-jin started. It is not a debate, Bora interrupted. You need someone on platform 2. I am the best pilot and engineer we have for this. It has to be me. We all knew this might happen. We all knew some of us might not come back. Wex's voice was shaky. There must be another way. We can find another solution. There is no time. Sunmi said softly. We have less than 3 hours. Daewon closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there was pain there, but also determination. Bora, if you do this, we will get you out as fast as possible. The moment the rupture is channeled, we pull you out. No, Bora said. I trust you. Now stop worrying about me and let me do my job. We got this. Remember, Young-ho spoke up. I will get platform 3 positioned as a reflector. My team can do a 40-minute spacesuit walk to deploy the incomplete systems. It is not perfect, but it will work. That is an extreme spacesuit walk-in unstable space, Kree protested. The radiation levels are already climbing. We have done worse, Young-ho said. Kree could hear the smile in his voice. Remember those asteroid mining runs near solar flares? This is just another day. At work, Loader Teen reconstitute of work. The command center erupted into controlled chaos. Every human moved with purpose. Sunmi coordinated the new deployment positions. Taon recalculated power requirements and timing. He-jin monitored the evacuation fleets, calculating how much time they would buy. On platform 2, Boa sealed herself into the control room. The radiation shielding would help, but not enough. Not at the power levels they needed. She knew that, but 12 billion lives were worth one human pilot. She thought about her family back on Earth, her younger brother who wanted to be an engineer like her parents who had always supported her dreams of flying among the stars. They would understand, she hoped. They would be proud. Platform 2 is ready, she reported. Bring on the fireworks. Young-ho and LT Unk and GT's team moved outside Platform 3 in their spacesuits, working in open space while a stellar catastrophe approached was probably the most dangerous thing any of them had ever done. They worked anyway, connecting cables, locking components into place, testing systems one by one. "This is insane," one of them said over the team channel, probably Yang Ho. Agreed, but it is also pretty cool how many people can say they saved 12 billion lives, assuming we survived to tell anyone details, Young Ho said with a laugh. Focus on the work. We have 30 minutes left on the council observation fleet. Vaughn watched the deployment with something like awe. The humans were attempting something that should not work. The odds were mathematically improbable. The danger was extreme. Every rational calculation said they would fail, but they were not failing. They were adapting, improvising, taking a disaster and turning it into a new plan within minutes. How do they do this? Talais asked beside him. I do not know, Vaughn admitted, but I am beginning to understand why humans have survived on their harsh world. They do not accept failure. They simply refuse to lose. With 20 minutes remaining, Young Ho's team finished their work and returned to their ship. Platform 3 was in position, incomplete but functional enough for what they needed. Platform 3, configured as reflector, Young Ho reported. The math says it should work. Let us hope the universe agrees with our math. Platform 1 ready, came another report. Power systems at maximum. We can push to 160% when needed. Platform 2 ready, Bora said. Her voice was calm. Steady, let us save some worlds. Day 1 looked at the countdown timer. 2 hours and 43 minutes until the rupture reached the inhabited systems. They would activate in 2 hours and 30 minutes, giving themselves a margin for adjustments. All teams, this is it. Day 1 said, no matter what happens in the next few hours, know that you did everything possible. The galaxy will remember what humans did here today. We got this. The communication channels echoed with confirmations. 50 human voices ready to risk everything. Kree felt something strange. It took him a moment to identify the emotion. It was hope. These impossible, crazy, brilliant humans had made him believe they could actually succeed. Now they just had to survive the next 3 hours. The rupture appeared on the long-range sensors like a wound in space itself. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Cascading waves of energy that twisted light and bent reality. It consumed everything in its path, turning stable space into chaos. 2 minutes to activation, Sunmi announced. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped the edge of her console. On Platform 2, Boa ran through her final checks. Radiation levels were already climbing. She could feel the heat building in the control room. Despite the shielding, soon the numbers on her screens would stop being abstract and start being personal. All platforms begin power increase. Day 1 ordered. The 3 platforms came alive. Energy readings spiked as the gravity well generators spun up to levels they were never designed to reach across all systems. Warning lights flashed. The equipment was screaming in every measurable way that this was too much, too dangerous, too impossible. The humans ignored the warnings and pushed harder. Platform 1 at 100% came the report, increasing to 120. Platform 3 holding position. Yang Ho said, reflector systems online. This is going to be interesting. Platform 2 at 140%. Bora reported. Her voice was calm, but Hee-jung could hear the strain, radiation. Levels in the red, temperature climbing. Still good for now, anically the energy. Readings from the platforms reached critical levels on the council. Observation fleet, every species watched. In silence, some prayed to their various deities, others simply stared at the screens, unable to look away. Activation. In 10 seconds, Sunmi counted down, 987. Taeyeon watched his calculations scroll past. Everything depended on timing. If they activated too early, the rupture would adapt and overwhelm them. Too late, and the inhabited systems would be destroyed. 3, 2, 1, activate. The platforms fired simultaneously. 3 gravity wells bloomed in space, warping reality around them. For a moment nothing happened. The rupture continued its approach, unstoppable, inevitable. Then it hit the edge of the first gravity well. The energy redirected, flowing into the channel created by platforms 1 and 2, but it was not clean. The rupture fought against the redirection, sending feedback surges back through the system. Energy feedback on platform 1, someone shouted, systems overloading compensate. With platform 2, Tan ordered Bora increase output by 5%. On it, Bora's fingers flew across controls that were burning hot to the touch. The radiation was already affecting her, but she pushed the thought away. Just a few more minutes, just hold on a few more minutes. The rupture's energy poured into the channel, but it was too much. The 2 platforms alone could not contain it. All energy spilled out, starting to spread toward the inhabited systems. Platform 3, activate reflector. Day 1 commanded. Young-ho engaged the incomplete system. The gravity well it created was weak, barely a fraction of what the other platforms generated, but it was positioned perfectly, and it did exactly what Hee-jung had theorized. It caught the spilling energy and reflected it back toward the main channel. The effect was immediate. The energy flow stabilized, pouring through the channel created by the 3 platforms, the ruptures cascading. Destruction was being guided, redirected away from 12 billion lives and into the empty void of deep space. But the platforms were dying. Hull temperature critical. On platform 1 came a panicked report, we are losing integrity. Platform 2 reactor is spiking. Another voice added, Bora, you need to reduce power. Cannot, Bora responded. Her voice was hoarse. Now the radiation was burning her throat, her lungs. If I reduce power, the channel collapses. Just need to hold a few more minutes. She could barely see the controls anymore. Her vision was blurring. Her hands were shaking so badly that half her inputs were corrections of previous mistakes, but she held the power steady, making micro adjustments every second to keep the gravity well stable. On the command ship, Hee-jung watched Bora and LT Unk and GT. Vital signs plummet. Daewon, she is dying. I know, Daewon said, his voice tight with emotion. Bora, 30 more seconds. Can you hold? Can hold, Bora whispered. Each breath was agony now. The radiation had done its terrible work, but her hand stayed on the controls, making adjustments by muscle memory when her eyes could no longer focus. The rupture's energy poured through the channel, billions of tons of destructive force, enough to destroy multiple star systems, all being guided by 3 platforms held together with improvised parts and human determination. On the council, Observation fleet, Vaughn watched. Readings that should not be possible. The platforms were operating at 200% of their theoretical maximum capacity. The material should have melted. The system should have failed. Every law of physics and engineering said this should not work, but it was working. 10 seconds. Counted. 9-8. Platform 1's hull began to crack. Warning screamed across every channel, but the humans aboard refused to evacuate, manually compensating for failing systems. 5-4. Platform 2's reactor was melting from the inside. Bora could no longer speak, but her hands still moved across the controls, keeping the power flowing. 2-1. The last of the rupture's energy poured through the channel and dispersed into deep space. The cascading destruction ended, its energy scattered harmlessly across the void. Energy readings dropping. Town shouted it worked. The rupture is dissipating. The command center erupted in celebration, but day 1 was already moving. Get recovery teams to platform 2 now. Go, go, go. The rescue ship reached Bora's platform. Within minutes, they found her slumped over the controls, barely conscious, her body ravaged by radiation, but she was alive. As they carried her to the medical bay, she managed a weak smile. We got this, she whispered. Evacuation fleets reported in 1-by-1. All civilian population safe. 0 casualties. 12 billion lives saved. On the council station, the chamber filled with representatives from 43 worlds. Vaughn stood at the center podium, his crystalline body shining with joy and relief. The council recognizes the human delegation, he announced. You were asked to review our problem. You promised to help. What you accomplished goes beyond anything we could have imagined. You took 3 derelict ships and created a miracle. You risked your lives, and one of you nearly gave her life to save billions of beings you have never met. Duan stood humble in the face of such praise. We did what needed to be done, what anyone would do. No, Talai said, standing as well. Not anyone. We tried for months and failed. You succeeded in days. You did not have better technology. You did not have more resources. You simply refused to accept that the problem was impossible. Hijin smiled slightly. On Earth we have a saying, when the situation is impossible and failure means unacceptable loss, humans have a tendency to succeed. Anyway, we do not know how to quit. 3 weeks later, the council held a ceremony. Bora attended, still recovering but alive. The radiation damage would heal. The doctor said she would fly again. The humans stood together as Vaughn presented them with the Star of Unity, the council's highest honor. It was the first time the award had been given to an entire species rather than an individual. How did you know you could do it? Vaughn asked afterward, the question that had haunted him since they first said they would help. Day 1. Consider the question carefully. We did not know, but knowing you can succeed and choosing to try anyway are different things. We chose to try. The rest was just solving problems as they appeared. Your species approaches challenges differently than we do. Talai's observed. We calculate probabilities and make careful plans. You improvise. Earth is a difficult world, Hijin explained. Earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, storms. Our planet did not make survival easy. We learned to adapt quickly or die. That skill stayed with us as we reached the stars. Kree, who had become something of a friend during the crisis, Spoke up, I have been studying human history. You have been doing this since you evolved. Crossing oceans in wooden boats, flying in machines that barely worked, going to your moon with computers less powerful than modern toys. You have always attempted the impossible. Young Ho grinned, and we usually succeed, sometimes through skill, sometimes through luck, but mostly through sheer stubbornness. The council has 17 more problems that we have classified as impossible, Vaughn said. Would you be willing to? Yes. Day one interrupted with a smile. Send us the data, we will take a look. As the human team prepared to leave for their next assignment, Wex approached them. I still do not understand how you do what you do. It makes no logical sense. Some Wex I marred, Bora, walking slowly but steadily, laughed. Maybe that is our secret. We do not think about whether something makes sense. We think about whether we can make it work. There is a difference. The humans boarded their ships, heading for their next impossible challenge. Behind them, the 3-star systems they saved were already rebuilding. 12 billion beings owed their lives to 50 humans who refused to accept that a problem was impossible. On the council observation deck, Vaughn watched the human ships depart. Tail Eyes stood beside him. When they first said, "We got this," I thought it was arrogance. Tail Eyes admitted it was not arrogance. Vaughn said it was simply a statement of fact. Humans see a problem and they assume they can solve it. That confidence seems irrational until you watch them actually do it. The galaxy is going to be very different with humans in it, Tail Eyes said. Yes, Vaughn agreed. Better, I think, in the depths of space. Far from council space, a new crisis was developing. Sensor stations were detecting anomalies that made no sense, energy readings that violated known physics. Something was coming, and the council's scientists could not explain it. They sent a message to the human delegation. The response came back within hours. Send us the data, we got this. And somehow, despite all logic and probability, the council believed them.